The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head, and a bristling black mustache.
All right, and welcome to Press Pass Live, the after-draft aftermath, as the league has now started and games are beginning to be played. And if the draft is the best time of the year, then this is the worst time of the year for one of my two co-hosts. Let me please welcome in the Buckman, Mr. Winovus, the draft guru, and his trusty sidekick, Dawgs. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Sidekick? Okay, that's interesting. I'm
glad to be back. It's been a little break from the show, but glad to be back.
Yeah, we missed you at the draft show, and I must say, if you're going to be a sidekick, you might as well be the Buckman sidekick, because there's worse ways to be a sidekick for. Let's hop right on in there. It is already week 2, which I cannot believe it is already week 2, and we are rolling right along. Let me catch you up really quick on some games. We're not going to be talking about games too much this week, but I do want to catch everybody up with week 1 games. Our main focus today is going to be talking about the draft and talking about how things went. So let's take a look if my internet will work with me here. Here we go. We're going to click week 1. I don't know what's up with this. It's really slow. Let me talk about a few games here. The Titans beat the Bills 37-16. The Steelers come away with a victory in their first game back after their championship, 35-6 over the Texans, and that was a nice victory over a good Texans team. The Bengals with a 21-17 win over my Saints. The Jaguars with a 33-27 victory over the Raiders. The Bears with a nice 24-10 victory over the Packers to start their season off at 1-0. The Redskins with a 38-0 win. You gotta love Madden Sim wins, but he did earn that either way, 38-0 over the Vikings. The Eagles with a 45-0 trampling of the Falcons. The Cowboys with a nice 38-22 victory over the Colts. The Chiefs lose a stunner to the Jets. They come away with a 27-24 victory. The Chargers win 27-14 over the Browns. The Panthers win 27-10 over the Ravens. The Patriots with a sim victory, 45-0 over the Dolphins. Thank you, Madden. The Cardinals showing why they are the best team in the NFC, 30-9 over the Rams. And the Buccaneers, 33, the Giants, 20. The Broncos win 28-21 over the 49ers in a really good, close game that I don't think any of us expected. And then finally, to wrap up week 1, your Monday night game, the Lions with a 37-31 victory on the road against the Seahawks. And there you have it. That is a look at week 1. But let's take a look back and talk about our favorite thing that has just ended not long ago, the draft. So, men, I want you to give me, if you don't mind, your winner and your loser from season 4 draft that just took place a couple of nights ago.
Well, my draft winner for this past draft has to be the Seattle Seahawks. From top to bottom, every position they picked, they got a potential starter, if not a guy that's great depth. They start with Marshawn Sanford at left guard. Second round, they pick up Jamie Jackson at center. That's 2 linchpins on their offensive line going forward. You pick up Malcolm Cobb, who got 2 sacks in the first game. I believe he was the spotlight rookie for week 1. You pick up right into Darius Stover, middle linebacker Stephen Duncan, wide receiver Deion Clark, tight end Kavonte Bowers, defensive tackle DeMarcus Carter, and cornerback Asher Roberts, none of which have an overall under 65. That's a phenomenal draft, in my opinion. That puts them number 1 in my list. And the draft loser, in my opinion, I had a very strong opinion of their draft during the draft show, which would be the Jacksonville Jaguars. Not so much what they picked up, but just where they got them at. They picked up a lot of guys that were 5th, 6th, 7th round at best projections way too early. You pick up middle linebacker Gage Poe and tight end Lucas Chandler. Lucas Chandler was probably the only worthwhile pick in the first 3 rounds. He was projected as a second-round grade. He got picked up in round 1, but you pick up guys like Idris Bradford, who was like a 5th-round grade in the second round, wide receiver Landon Darman in the second round, and another head-scratcher, quarterback Ryan Farmer, whenever you have Blake Bortles well under contract for the rest of this particular season of Madden. You pick him up in the second round, then just head-scratchers throughout. I didn't like anything the Jaguars did in the draft. That's my draft loser. Dogs, who are your draft winners and losers?
I'd have to say my draft winner would be our host here, Nate, and the New Orleans Saints. Very solid draft. You got 3 fast development guys: center Kyle Hennings, wide receiver Floyd Jordan, who's going to be a dynamic duo with Davis Morrison there. Right end Brandon Morales, a right guard Nick Butler, right guard who I believe started as a center Taylor Robinson, another fast development guy, already looking at an 83 overall. When you look at all the picks, the lowest pick was is a 65 overall, so that's a really solid draft for him. I feel like he got at least probably 4 or 5 starters in there. And like I said, probably the biggest pickup for him was getting that second wide receiver to take some of the load off of Morrison. You could possibly have 2 starters on the offensive line, one at center and one at guard. So anytime you can add to the offensive line, I think that's a very key position to build upon. And staying in the same division, going the Atlanta Falcons, a guy that is actually no longer with us. But just looking at his draft, first round, he started out okay. He got linebacker Mike Roberts, 75 overall. So, started out pretty good. Linebacker out of Georgia there, left outside linebacker. Then you look at the rest of his draft, and anytime the second best player you pick is a kicker, you have not had a good night. So Jordan kicker out of Washington was his second best draft pick. And I don't really think I need to say much else about that. Your kicker is the second best draft pick. That's an awful draft for the Falcons. Like I said, a guy that's no longer here, but he did the future Falcons owner no favors with his draft picks.
Hey, but what a name, right? If you got to pick a kicker, you might as well pick a kicker named Jordan. I'm really surprised that neither one of you went with somebody that got hammered pretty good on our draft night, and that was the St. Louis Rams, who tended to do a lot of combine reaching and picking guys who scored really well in the combine, but they didn't check out too well. That would have been one of my losers, and then I agree with you guys. I like a lot of the other winners that you've picked. So let's take a look a little bit deeper. Let's talk some predictions. So let's take a look. Let's take this level by level, division by division. Let's take a look and see at who you feel like is going to come out of these different divisions. We'll do a rapid fire. We'll go back and forth. And so let's start it out in the AFC. Let's go with the AFC East. Win, why don't you start it out? Give me your predictions coming out of the AFC East.
I predict that the New England Patriots will win the division, although it will be a lot closer than last year. I don't think the Patriots have near the firepower on both offense and defense they did last year. They got hammered this offseason with some key losses, including Jamie Collins and Dante Hightower. They pick up Alshon Jeffrey, but I think it's a really close division. I think the Jets are going to give them a fight till the bitter end, but I think the Patriots narrowly win the East with the Jets nipping at their heels.
Dogs, why don't you give me your predictions in the AFC East?
Yeah, AFC East, familiar division for me. The Patriots, man, it's a solid team. Also, I think you got to look at the Dolphins, who kind of flaked out on us this week, and what I think would have been a good game with the Patriots had he ever shown up to actually play it. The Bills are always a tough opponent as well, but I just think the Patriots is it's a solid team. I know he lost some key defensive players for him there, a couple outside linebackers. So we'll see what he's got to fill in those spots. And also another name that I believe is on the Bears rosters as well this year, Julian Edelman. The guy, he went to Julian Edelman a lot on some third down key conversions. So we'll have to see who can pick it up. I think Alshon Jeffrey probably will pick up the slack there, but going with the Patriots to win the AFC East.
Well, let's go look at the AFC North and take a look at. You got the world champion, two-time back-to-back world champion Pittsburgh Steelers over there, dominating the AFC North, and of course they also lost one of their longtime owners, and Johnny, who was the Cincinnati Bengals. He has now moved over to the NFC. Dog, why don't you give me your predictions for the AFC North?
Yeah, I think this one's pretty easy. Pittsburgh Steelers all day, unless he quits or decides something. That dude's not out there in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh Steelers win that division all day. I think close. If I say close, Cleveland won 10 or 11 games last year, so the Browns could slip in there and take that division. If the Steelers have some sim losses, like I believe they did last year, and Cleveland actually did win the division. But if Pittsburgh plays their games, Pittsburgh wins the division.
Dawgs made my point for me by mentioning that Cleveland did indeed win the division last year. Yes, the Steelers had some sim games in there, but I like the Browns. I like what they did. I think people are starting to catch on to Pittsburgh now. I'm not saying that that's going to cost them many games, but I think the Browns narrowly squeak past the Steelers and win the NFC or the AFC North. I'm sorry.
Let's take a look at the AFC South now. Jacksonville is a team that's completely rebuilding. Tennessee and Houston are good teams. And, of course, you never know what's going to happen with Andrew Luck and the Indianapolis Colts. So, Wynn, why don't you tell me what you think is going to happen in the AFC South, a division that you know a lot about?
Well, I think this is going to be the tightest. Well, the second tightest division in the AFC. The next one's going to be the tightest that we talk about. I think the Titans, although they had a great season last year, I still think they're going to have a great season this year. I think look out for Bill and the Texans. I think the Texans will be rolling. I know they lost Week 1 to the Steelers. They kind of got ran over a little bit, but I think Bill and the Texans bounce back. I think he gets about 10 or 11 wins in that AFC South, and I think it's AFC South is going to be a lot better. I think Jacksonville. I watched their game against the Raiders. This guy is a very good player, a very good coach. I know I dogged him for his draft, but he plays very well. Very good coach, very good strategy. The Colts are improved. I think this division is going to be very tight, but I think the Texans narrowly eke it out and are tops in the AFC South.
Dawgs, why don't you go ahead and give me your predictions for the AFC South?
Yeah, AFC South. I think the Titans win that one. I think it is a closer race this year than it has been, like Wynn was saying. It's a really good division, but Texans are a good player. The Colts are up and down, but the guy can put together some wins as well. I'll give you an interesting stat from Jacksonville's first game. His leading receiver, Lucky Whitehead. How about that one? 4 catches, 150 yards, and a touchdown. Speedster. So I don't know. Maybe he can make it work with some of those guys that we dogged him for picking in the draft. And I know Whitehead was a free agent that he went after. So hey, some guys just can win with different types of players, but I don't think it's enough. I think the Titans end up with the division crown again in the AFC South.
One thing's for sure about the AFC South and Jacksonville, he absolutely has taken over where Wynn left off with that team, signing about 55 free agents they can get his hands on. He loves to go after the waiver wire. I think he's already posted some for this week. So one thing's for sure, Jacksonville's going to rotate players in and out until they find the right ones. Let's hop over to the AFC West. You got the San Diego Chargers, who are always a tough team over there. The Denver Broncos, who've kind of owned that division for a while. The Oakland Raiders, who we've always just kind of been waiting to put it all together, and then the up and down Kansas City Chiefs. Normally they're up, but they've had some down times, and it's going to be a really interesting team to see what happens with them after having a super strong season 2 years ago and then an up and down one last year. So, Dawg, why don't you tell me what you feel like is going to happen in the AFC West?
Yeah, I think a team you talked about there at the beginning, the Chargers. I got the Chargers winning the AFC West this year. That's a really tough division. Denver's a really good player. Kansas City, like you said, can be a really good player. the Broncos will be tough to beat, but I think this year the San Diego Chargers win it, and even crazier to say, they will win it with Colin Kaepernick at the helm.
Oh, Dogs, seriously, let's lay off the juice before you get on the show, man. Chargers are not winning this division with Colin Kaepernick at quarterback. It will be a tight division. San Diego is much improved. San Diego will probably finish fourth in this division if they have Kaepernick at the helm, honestly. I think the Denver Broncos will squeak it out like they did last year. I think it'll be a very much a beat-em-up division. You're going to see a 9-7, 8-8 team win this division, and it's probably going to come down to week 16 or 17. I have the Broncos narrowly squeaking out the Chiefs and Raiders to take this division.
I think that there's a little piece of me wanting Colin Kaepernick to take it all. I think that would just make me laugh really deep inside, and I just think that would be really funny to hear that show after Colin Kaepernick leads the Chargers all the way to the playoffs. Let's hop over to the NFC, one of the divisions that are conferences that are near and dear to Win and I's heart. Let's look and start in the NFC East. You got the Washington Redskins, who've absolutely owned that division here of late. The Philadelphia Eagles, who are always strong, have a really strong roster. The Dallas Cowboys, who come away with a really impressive Week 1 victory. And, of course, the New York Giants, who you never quite know what you're going to get, but the guy sure absolutely loves to make big moves to make his team what he wants it to be. Win, why don't you give me your predictions for the NFC East?
In a tighter division than you might think, I think the NFC East comes down to Philly and Washington, and I think this year Philly takes it over Washington. I think both teams end up with 10-plus wins. I think the Eagles squeak out, say, 11, and Washington squeaks out 10. Give me the Philadelphia Eagles to win the NFC East.
Dogs, what do you think about the NFC East?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Redskins here. I do think it's a much improved division. You got the Eagles coming on strong, had some really solid draft picks, had a ton of draft picks. He's another guy who I felt like had a pretty decent draft. The Cowboys did get a win over the Colts in Week 1. The Giants are a good team. Right, will be right there, I believe, at least in the wild card race. 2, possibly 3 playoff teams in this division. I believe the Washington Redskins, though, will take the division once again.
Now we're going to hop on over to the NFC North, a division that's near and dear to Winner's heart. This is the division that I've really got my eye on. It interests me the most. Of course, you've got the Chicago Bears, who've completely revamped that team. If the owner can keep it all together upstairs, I think he's going to compete. You never know what's going to happen with Junior and his Detroit Lions, but it's good to see him back on his winning ways. I really like the Green Bay Packers. He can't seem to catch any breaks to put it all together, but I like that roster. I like that player. I like the way he plays. I expect him to turn around and get some wins this year. And, of course, the Vikings are up with a new owner. Unfortunately, Johnny has moved over from the Bengals to the Vikings because we lost a really great owner. But such is life, and we move on with our league. Dog, why don't you give me your predictions for the NFC North?
Yeah, well, if Wynn thought I was on the sauce earlier, he's really going to like this one. Chicago Bears win the NFC North. I think that's a competitive division. I think it's going to be a very close race down the stretch. You got a new guy moving in, which is always going to shake things up. But I believe Wynn has made some very solid moves. He's got a running back he really likes, veteran quarterback in Drew Brees, who has got to be like 55 now. As long as they let him use his motorized scooter, the Chicago Bears will win the NFC North.
And you're absolutely correct. You're definitely on the sauce. Until we had our Vikings owner leave, I probably would have said Minnesota just because I playing the previous owner, I thought he was a tough opponent. I'm going to go with a little bit of luck since I don't know how Johnny plays, the new Vikings owner. I'm going to stick with who I know, and I think Junior wraps it up. I think the Lions win the NFC North. I think he's got a lot of offensive firepower. I think he does just enough on defense to get by. It pains me to say it because it's hard to talk about anybody else in my division with good taste in my mouth. But I'm going to say the Detroit Lions win the NFC North.
We didn't really expect him to pick his team to win at all. So we'll just move right on over to the NFC South, my favorite division. And of course, we got our buddy W. Dunn. He's back, and he's taken over the Carolina Panthers. Of course, you got Brady with Tampa Bay, who's always strong. Of course, my Saints. And then a new owner over in Atlanta who none of us really know a whole lot about. So we'll have to see how that cracks up. Why don't you give me your predictions for the NFC South?
Well, Nate, I'm going to start by saying I didn't pick the Saints. So
I wouldn't have picked the Saints.
Well, I'm giving you the fair warning here. I'm gonna go with the guy that I've played. I mean, I've played you too, and I will play you again this year. But I'm gonna go with Brady and the Bucks because that run game is absolutely stupid insane. And if Decatur Thomas gets rolling, just look out and get out of the way because he could run for 200 easily. He did it to me when the one game we played. That was the one game my Bears defense allowed more than 100 yards rushing last year. Was against him and allowed a 198. So I gotta take the Bucks. I mean the Falcons are an unknown commodity right now. The Saints I feel like are going to be about 8-8 ish, but I don't think it's going to be enough to beat the Bucks. I see the Bucks getting 10 wins and winning the division.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you there. Tampa Bay to win the NFC South, and a lot of that has to do with not really knowing much about the Falcons owner, and I personally don't know much about Dunn. I know you guys have played with him before, but just going off of what I know Tampa Bay's got a really good squad there. He runs the ball really well. He plays good defense. So I would say Tampa Bay. I will say I think the Saints improve off of last year's run. Had a ton of injuries at the running back position, and even played some games with I believe Tom Savage at quarterback. So anytime that happens, you're going to definitely struggle. But I think Nate gets it going again this year, but not quite enough to beat out Brady and the Bucks.
Let's move over to the NFC West, where you have Nolan and his Cardinals, who's always good for one or two loss season. You got the St. Louis Rams, who, if this was a track meet, could probably beat all of us, but it's not a track meet, it's football, and he's still got to play these games. You got the Seattle Seahawks, who are strong and always looking to rebuild. They tend to make a late run every single year. And the San Francisco 49ers, who none of us really know what's going to come out of San Francisco, but you know what? He had a really good, strong showing against the Broncos in week 1, which really impressed me. So, Dog, why don't you give me your NFC West breakdown?
Yeah, to me, this is probably the easiest pick of all. The Arizona Cardinals all day. Rams probably be an improved team this year. I think the 49ers guy is a little bit, like you said, you really don't know much about him. He had a couple good pickups in the offseason and trades, and I don't think he's gonna contend for the division by any means. Seahawks have a really good team, have some good young players. Russell Wilson at quarterback, still have a solid defense, but I just don't really see any of those three teams competing with the Cardinals for the division. So Arizona would be my pick for the NFC West, and if I had to bet on one of them, that would definitely be the one I would take.
Okay, with all due respect to the St. Louis Rams, to the Seattle Seahawks, who is a board member with the GFML, and to the other team I'm not thinking about, the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, you guys are just hanging out in Nolan's division. It is his division unless he decides to relinquish it. The Cardinals will destroy everyone in that division, and they will easily, by week 14, by week 10 or 11, they'll probably have a playoff berth locked up.
So let's go real quick. We got AFC, NFC. Give me your 2 wild cards win, AFC and NFC.
AFC wild cards are going to be the New York Jets and the Tennessee Titans. NFC wild cards are Redskins and Saints.
Dog, give me your AFC and NFC wild card players.
AFC wild card would be, I believe, the Browns and the Broncos. NFC, I'll go with the Eagles and Detroit.
There you have it right there. There are your procrastinations for season 4 from the Win and the Dog, and it's going to be fun to see how this is going to break out. And who knows, come 3 or 4 more shows from now, we'll be ready for the draft all over again. Let's talk about some players. The offseason is always a ton of fun because you have the draft, you have an influx of new talent. Of course, with the new waiver wire system, the way we did our offseason, a lot more rookies from the draft stayed in our league and did not get deleted. And then you also have free agent players who are coming and going and moving and trying on new uniforms. So, Dog, why don't you start us off with this one? Give me one player to watch for in season 4.
My one player to watch is maybe a surprise to some people, but Todd Gurley, a guy that was stuck in an offense in St. Louis, where quite frankly the owner of the Rams just didn't give the guy the ball. I mean, he's a great running back. Comes out first week in San Francisco, has 16 carries, 122 yards for a 7.6 yard average. Had a touchdown, also had a receiving touchdown. So this is a guy who I believe I still don't understand why he traded him. I know he got a really good pick with the cornerback in the draft. His name, I forget his name right off, but Todd Gurley would be my player to watch. I think if the 49ers plays their games, he sticks around, I think Todd Gurley is easily in the top 5 in rushing this year.
Okay, now I'm going to preface this by saying everybody knows I hate talking about myself and I hate talking about my players being successful. My player to watch is Bears halfback Ronaldo Ball. The last 9 games he played last season, 8 starts. He led the Bears in rushing at the end of the season. 2 of his last 4 games he ran for 100-plus yards. And in week 1, he had 14 carries for 127 yards and a touchdown. And I'm going to go on record right now. If Ronaldo Ball gets 1,400 yards rushing, the Bears will be in the playoffs.
You heard it here first. We never thought that
Can
we
you
would
repeat that? Because I want everybody to hear you say that one more time.
If Ronaldo Ball gets 1,400 yards, the Bears will make the playoffs, period.
Okay.
And that's going to be impressive for a running back who's 69 overall, who Wynn has been looking for and moved him around to several different teams, but it looks like he's finally found a home here in Chicago. And it's going to be fun to see how that season, how that player all comes out to be this year. All right, well, let's start to wrap some things up here. We have already kind of covered what we feel like the draft was and how the standings are going to go, a player to watch for. Let's do a little segment called What Would You Rather, all right? And we're going to open this up to Wynn to start it off, and Dog, you're going to give your part. Who would you rather, Tank Graham or Philo Jordan, 2 rookie receivers that were drafted in this past draft? Tank Graham goes to the Eagles. Jordan from LSU comes over to my Saints. Who would you rather to start your season off to have as your receiver? Wynn, why don't you give me your thoughts?
Well, because I'm very much big on size, I got to go with Tank Graham. 6'4" guy, had a 97 speed coming out of college. Guy will outrun everything that's not standing still. His acceleration is a little low, but I don't care. At 6'4", got great jump, got great hands, great speed. Give me that all day long. I'll take that, and I'll throw up jump balls all day long to Tank Graham.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Floyd Jordan here. You said 97 speed. Jordan has 96 speed, 98 acceleration, which means he is going to fly past some guys. Good catch, good vision once he gets the ball, good elusiveness, good juke, spin move. He's got he's a pretty good route for a rookie receiver. He's got good catch in traffic. Pair him up with Morrison out there, and the Saints have a very good tandem. If I had him, I would like to have him as well, put on the opposite side of Marion Russell. But first game out for Jordan, 5 catches, 118 yards with a 50 long and a touchdown. So I would take Jordan here, fast development guy, just a solid all around player.
All right, let's talk about 2 teams here, 2 young teams that if you like to play GM and you want a lot of cash and some young rosters that you can turn around, these would be 2 teams. So who would you rather be, the Jacksonville Jaguars or the St. Louis Rams? Dogs, why don't you start us off?
This one was very easy for me, and for no other reason than the Jacksonville Jaguars are not in the same division with Nolan. That would be the reason I would pick the Jaguars. And also, you look at their depth chart. You got a young quarterback in Blake Bortles, young running back T.J. Yeldon. They got some very solid players. Alan Hearns, sorry, at the receiver. Marquise Lee. Like I said, Lucky Whitehead is not a very high overall rated guy, but he's got some speed. Some guys can make that work. Just a pretty solid roster. Got a couple good young offensive linemen, and like I said, most importantly, the Jaguars are not in the same division with the Arizona Cardinals.
Well, I'm going to take the flip side. I'm going to take the St. Louis Rams, and if for no other reason than apparently there is a you must be 88 speed or 87 speed or better to ride this train that is the St. Louis Rams. They have speed everywhere. Their quarterback is 92 speed, for crying out loud. Their quarterback could outrun Alshon Jeffrey. That's ridiculous. And the speed it's everywhere, and I love Jose Sims, their number one overall pick at cornerback. He's a great cornerback, and he's got a lot of talent in the secondary there. If he could ever get any semblance of a run game going, that defense is quite nasty. If he could rely on maybe getting the 20s in scores with that offensive line and that defense he boasts as far as speed and more speed, he could win a lot of ball games, even in a division with Nolan. I'm going to take the Rams just because I'm normally not a speed guy, but there's so much there, it's hard to ignore.
Yeah, didn't you say he drafted the fastest left tackle in the draft?
He did. He did draft the fastest left tackle in the draft. That is not that's not made up story.
You can't. There's some things you just can't make up. And here's a stat that should make him sick to his stomach. Ty Gurley goes for 140 plus with 2 touchdowns. Trey Brandon, the running back that he just absolutely had to have, 10 carries, 22 yards. How's that working out for you after week 1? Not too good. The neat thing about both these teams, though, I know we give him a lot of junk about his speed and the fastest left tackle, which is just mind-blowing. But both of these teams really do like speed, and if you look at their moves, both have been adding a lot of speed, and it's going to be neat to kind of see how this plays out throughout the year. Can the Rams finally turn it around and make a run after the playoffs, or does this Jags experiment really turn it around and make something happen for the Jaguars? Let's go to our last what would you rather. What would you rather, and when you can start us off with this one, would you rather have the number 1 overall draft pick in a draft, or would you like to have the number 1 top free agent of your choice?
Well, if we're going to go back to this past season, as much as I love Jose Sims, who was the number 1 overall pick, I would love to have had the top free agent in this past class, which to me was Jamie Collins. Just a difference maker at the linebacker position. I actually almost had him traded for if he'd actually had a contract under him. So that tells you how much I think about Jamie Collins. I'm a defense first guy. Both of these guys were defensive guys, and in any one given year, I'd rather have the top free agent just because it's a known commodity versus the number 1 overall pick, which is an unknown commodity. But in this one, if I'm going back to this past year, it was a tough decision, but I definitely would have wanted Jamie Collins on my roster over Jose Sims.
Yeah, I can't really argue with you, but I will. So I would take Jose Sims in this one. Jamie Collins is an outstanding player, no doubt. Brings experience to any linebacking core. But look at Jose Sims, and cornerback is such an important position in this game. You got receivers who usually Madden favors the receivers on the speed. But Jose Sims is a guy that could run with those faster receivers with 97 speed. He's 6'2", 86 man coverage, 88 zone coverage, 80 press. I mean, just straight out of the box, Jose Sims is an outstanding player who's only going to get better. I know we're towards the end of the cycle here, but if I had to take from this past year's draft and free agent pool, I would take Jose Sims over Jamie Collins.
Well, there you have it. That is a look at week 1 and the offseason and the draft and everything here at Grown Folks. before we wrap it up, gentlemen, any last closing thoughts?
It's a good start to the season. I'd like to keep it going. I mean, I got a tough game this week against the co-host, the Jets. I'm looking forward to it. Tough schedule ahead. Looking forward to maybe seeing if I can make a run, and then by week 5 or 6, whenever I'm 1-4, go ahead and packing it in and getting ready for the draft.
Yeah, you're not going to be 1-4, and I don't think you have that tough of a game this week. But we'll see. It'll be fun. It always is fun whenever we get to play each other. But the only thing I would say is to Wynn's point earlier, I have not been drinking today. So, anyways, I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I feel like after listening to this show, maybe we should all start drinking. It must be, though, the week of the board member, because you guys are playing each other, and then I get to play Mr. Steve of the Cowboys as I try to turn things around from a tough week 1 loss as I kind of gave up a late touchdown. And so I'm ready to kind of turn some things around and try to make a playoff run myself. So another great show is in the books. We actually had a caller this week, which is a change for our midweek press pass lives that we do. Thanks for calling in. I'm not quite sure who you are because it just shows a phone number, but we appreciate you calling in. Hopefully next week we'll have a guest on the show. It didn't quite work out this week. We had somebody lined up at the last second. They had to bow out. So another great show for my guests, my 2 co-hosts, I should say, Winnovis and Dawgs. Thank you guys so much. We will see you next time when we take a look at weeks 1, 2, and 3 and actually start to talk about some games. So thanks for listening to Press Pass Live. We will see you next week.